Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into something that is honestly a deeply universal human glitch. Have you ever noticed that most of us don't actually live in the present moment? Instead, we're almost always living for the next achievement. We live for the next, supposedly upgraded version of ourselves, or we're just living for the next escape from whatever discomfort we're feeling right now. We are constantly chasing this feeling of finality, right? A state of being totally done or complete. But, as we're going to see by breaking down the data, the psychology, and the philosophy behind all of this, that feeling is completely an illusion. So today we're exploring the mirage of completion and how we can actually break this exhausting cycle of perpetual wanting.
So I'm going to hit you with a question right off the bat, and it might feel just a tiny bit confrontational. But seriously, I want you to really think about it. Why aren't you happy yet? Think about a major goal you achieved recently. Maybe you got that promotion at work, or you finished a totally grueling project, or you finally bought that thing you've been saving up for forever. For a moment, you felt absolutely fantastic. But then, almost inexplicably, that familiar sense of lacking just crept right back in. Why is it that reaching our goals rarely ever brings the lasting, permanent peace we expect them to?
Well, to figure this out, we just need to look at how life basically turns into this relentless chain of expectations right from day one. Our minds constantly move the goalposts throughout our entire lives. Think about it. When we're kids, the mantra is always, I'll be happy when school ends. Then we become young adults and it shifts to, okay, I'll be happy when I get into college. We graduate and suddenly it's when I get a real job. Then when I finally make some money, when I find love, and when I become truly successful. It's just this rhythmic, relentless cadence. And the real kicker? Even after you hit those massive, life-altering milestones, your mind just casually moves the goalpost again.
And that brings us to the ultimate lie our brains feed us every single day. Once this happens, then I'll finally feel okay. Human beings are just constantly living for the next big achievement. We tell ourselves that this next hurdle, this is the final one. We convince ourselves that our current dissatisfaction is just a temporary state that'll totally be cured by some future event. But instead of actually living in the present, we end up permanently stuck in the waiting room of our own lives.
All right, part one, the psychological mechanism. Let's look at the hard science behind this endless chase.
So, the actual scientific term for this whole exhausting process is the hedonic treadmill. This is the psychological mechanism where we humans just quickly adapt to improvements. Evolutionarily speaking, your brain is quite literally wired to normalize your successes so you don't get complacent. When your life improves, that initial spike of joy is super intense, but then it quickly just becomes your new normal. It totally loses its emotional intensity. You adapt to your new salary, your new relationship, or your fancy new lifestyle, and suddenly, what once felt incredibly thrilling is just Tuesday.
And because that excitement fades and normalizes, your brain absolutely refuses to just sit there and chill. It immediately responds to that fading excitement by generating new targets. It goes right back on the hunt. Step 1, it creates another goal. Step 2, another desire forms. Step 3, another expectation is set. The treadmill just keeps spinning. We are biologically programmed to adapt and then immediately look for the next big upgrade to try and recapture that emotional high.
Moving on to part two, the philosophy of endless wanting. Let's zoom out and look at the concept of endless desire.
Now, realizing that this relentless drive is basically our factory setting and not some personal flaw you have is honestly so liberating. The 19th century philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer actually mapped out this human condition perfectly. He believed that human life constantly moves between two states, driven by this inner restless force he called the will. Because of this, our lives act almost like a giant pendulum, swinging back and forth. On one side, we have desire, wanting something new, feeling that deep, painful ache of lacking something. Then we get what we want. But instead of permanent joy, we swing right over to the other side, boredom. The temporary satisfaction fades, we adapt, we get bored, and that boredom inevitably births a brand new desire, and we just swing back and forth pretty much forever.
Meaning, the exact second one desire gets fulfilled, boom, another one pops right up. And I really want to reassure you right now, this happens not because there is something fundamentally wrong with you. You aren't broken just because you can't seem to stay satisfied. It happens because wanting itself never truly ends. Feeling a lack of completion just means you are a human being functioning completely normally.
In fact, thousands of years before Schopenhauer was even born, the Buddha was pointing toward this exact same profound truth. Desire itself is just endless. In Buddhist philosophy, this constant craving is recognized as the root of human suffering, or dukkha. It's the realization that if your inner peace depends entirely on future outcomes, your mind will always, without fail, create another condition for your happiness. If you tell yourself, I literally need X to be happy, the very moment you get X, your mind will instantly decide it actually needs Y. It is an endless, looping cycle of dissatisfaction.
Which leads us to part 3, the modern comparison trap. Let's talk about how modern life supercharges this whole cycle. Because today, guys, comparison is generating new expectations at a rate literally never before seen in human history. Every single time you open social media, what does it show you? It shows better lifestyles, way more success, more beauty, and more achievement. Because someone always seems to be miles ahead on our feeds, your life can improve objectively, like you can be doing better than you ever have in your entire life, but it can still feel completely inadequate subjectively. The treadmill isn't just an internal biological thing anymore. Society has basically cranked the speed dial all the way to maximum.
So this brings us to a really harsh realization about our modern problem. We think we're chasing things like a job, money, or success. But actually, scratch that. What we are really chasing is identity, validation, worth, and emotional completion. We aren't just chasing physical or financial goals anymore. We're trying to fill this deep, profound psychological void with external achievements. And that is exactly why the satisfaction feels so incredibly temporary. A promotion at work, as great as it is, simply cannot permanently give you self-worth.
And this leads to the most tragic, hidden cost of the hedonic treadmill. You literally begin postponing your own happiness. You stop living your current life fully because your mind is so deeply emotionally invested in a future version of it. This creates a really strange, almost ghost-like existence. You're always chasing, but rarely ever actually arriving. You are physically here, sitting in this moment, but mentally, you're always 5 years down the road, just hoping that future version of you finally feels whole.
Finally, Part 4, redefining ambition and happiness. How do we find fulfillment without just giving up?
Now, I need to be super clear about something. This absolutely does not mean goals are bad. Ambition, growth, they matter a lot. The problem isn't wanting to improve your life. The problem starts when your fulfillment becomes permanently conditional. It's when you attach your absolute right to feel happy and at peace exclusively to those future outcomes. That is when the whole system becomes destructive.
So the fix here isn't just giving up on ambition or stopping your personal growth. The core actionable takeaway is learning how to fiercely pursue things without attaching your entire happiness to them. You can absolutely want the promotion, you can build the business, you can strive for a way better life, but you've got to detach your internal baseline peace from the external results. You have to learn to enjoy the pursuit itself, rather than betting your whole identity on the finish line.
I want to boil today's entire explainer down to this one powerful insight. The next step may improve your life, but it will never permanently complete you. Seriously, keep taking those steps, keep improving your life, but recognize that external milestones simply cannot provide internal completion. Once you truly accept that the mirage of completion is just that, a total mirage, you actually free yourself up to finally enjoy the journey.
And I'll just leave you with this final pretty stark thought to chew on. A life spent chasing happiness in the future often forgets to experience the present at all.